Hello everybody and welcome back to our command and control center coding. So in the previous video we finished all of this code, we coded our server function, we started a thread, and what we want to do right now is enter our first while true loop. Now our first while true loop will actually be the center itself. So it will be our center command and control, or basically our center command line where we will send the commands for all the targets at the same time. Now I'll show you what I mean. Maybe if we finish it you will understand it a little bit better. All we want to do after creating a thread and running our thread, we want to enter a while true loop. Oops. So while true, this is our first while true loop, and we will set a command variable to be equal to raw underscore input, and there we can actually take something similar as to our shell input. But right now, since it is not shell anymore, it is center, we can just do something like this. So center, or basically just center, doesn't even matter. You can specify anything you want later on. For now on, center will be good enough. Now let's see what possible commands we can send to our center. So first of all, we can send, for example, a command where we actually want to check out which targets we have connected. So we can just type, for example, simply just targets, and then our threaded server should print out all the targets that are currently connected to us. So let's see how we can implement that. It is rather simple. So basically, if this command is equal to targets, which will be our command for specifying all the targets, we can just create a variable which will be, for example, called count equals 0. And then we will just print all the targets from the IPs list that we created right here. So it will have some targets IPs address connected or basically imported in this list. All we want to do is read from this list one by one and print them. So for IP, in IPs, what we want to do is print, so open and close bracket, session plus string of count. So session, for example, 0, session 1, session 2, session 3, and so on, plus, and let's add, for example, the dot, so it can be session number 0, session number 1, and session number 2, so first, second, third, and so on. Then we can do something like this, space once again, plus the string of the IP. Now what this will do, the reason why we set the count to be equal to 0 is the same reason why we send up here the clients to be equal to 0, because our IPs and targets will start counting from the 0 element. So the 0 is the first element in the list. Therefore, the session 0 will contain the IP address of the element 0 in the IPs list. So simple as that. Now all we need to do right now is, after we actually print this, we need to increase the count by 1. So count plus equals 1. So what this will do is it will print out, as I said before, all the available targets that are connected to us. So let me just check everything right here. Did we specify the same here? Okay, so we did. Right now we need to go and perform a second thing that we possibly might need. So let's say that we actually want to enter a session with an actual target. So you remember from the Metasploit framework that if you connect multiple PCs and you type, for example, sessions, you will get prompted meterpreter 1, meterpreter 2, and then you can just type sessions -i1 and it will enter the session 1, and so on and so on. Right here we will try to implement something similar. So else if the command that we specified to the server equals for first 7 letters, since we will need to specify the number of the session we want as well, which can vary from our own needs. So, but the first part of the command will always be the same. That's why the first 7 letters of the command equal to session. So session, what we want to do is try and accept to enter that certain session. Now once again, why we are using try and accept? Well, basically, let's say you specify a number of sessions that doesn't really exist. We don't want our server to crash. So this is maybe a little bit harder part, even though it's not that long of a code. Maybe it will be harder for you to understand. What we need to actually do right here is get an integer number from our command. So our command will look something like this. Let me just specify it right here. Session 3. For example, we want to enter the fourth PC that connected to us. We would specify session 3. And then in order to parse that command right here, we need to make the first number, or the number that will be the number of the session itself, to be equal to an integer of the command of the 8th character and till the end. So from the 8th character will be strip out this session and strip out the empty space and just 3 till the end. So simply just 3 in our case. Then we need to select the target number and the target IP from this session. Now, what I mean by that is our targets and IPs list contain our target that we want to specify with this command right here. So we need to access it with this number here, or with this number that we stored in this current variable. So how we can access that? Well, we can simply just type here target number, or shortly just tarnum variable will contain the targets element at the number of our specified number. Now what I mean by this is basically this tarnum variable will contain the socket object of our target, which then we will use to access simply just the target only. We also need to do the same for the IP, so target IP, so tar IP variable will store the IP address and port from the IPs list at the element numbered at the number stored in this variable right here, or the number that we specified with the command. So all we need to do afterwards is, since we have the tarnum and tar IP, which is defining our target in total, all we need to do is enter the shell with that target, with simply just using the shell function, which we will just paste from our server previously into our current threaded server later on, which will take an argument of the socket object from the target and from the target IP. Then we will enter a shell with that specific target, which will be a second while true loop, which is what I was talking about. So basically we will have a while true loop inside a while true loop. In any other case, so in the case it doesn't work, we will just print to the screen no session under that number. So simply as that, since for example, let's say we have 3 targets connected and you specify number 7 right here, of course there will not be an actual session with that number. So that would be about it for this video. In the next video we will see how we can actually implement our shell function without coding it once again. Since we already have our payload or our reverse shell that we want to deliver, we only want to do minor changes to both of those servers and the reverse shells. So we will just copy the shell function from our previous server into this code right here, which will allow us to access individual session one at a time. So that will be about it for this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye!